Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Happy President's Day and welcome to Sports Speak Live. This is Eddie Kalegi, our second ever edition. We did this a month ago, and boy, is there a lot of stuff that I can talk about on this edition. We can start with the Daytona 500, then get into everything else with the NBA All-Star Game, Hi Sebastian, and we can also talk about the Super Bowl. So I'll be back in just like 5 seconds and then we'll continue. Sorry about that. Islanders pregame was just ridiculously too loud behind me. Okay, so I got to offer my take on the Daytona 500 because I know everybody is going to be wondering because I bet a lot of you have been seeing the reaction to everything that went down in the Daytona 500. I'm doing good. So first, if you saw David Land's video yesterday where he is very opposed to what happened at the end, obviously if you didn't see it, I'll explain it in a moment what happened in the 500. And then NASCAR fan 4888, he just uploaded a video pretty much contrasting that and giving the real NASCAR fans' point of view. But for anyone who's listening who is not aware of what happened, I'll just do a quick explanation. So racing was getting exciting, 10 laps to go. You got some small teams up there, but it's really looking like Ryan Blaney's race. Then Kurt Busch comes into the picture with Denny Hamlin. Blaney gets shuffled out. Then you get fully double file, 2 laps to go. Kurt Busch wrecks and takes out a whole bunch of drivers. And there's only like 5 or 6 cars left in the race. So it comes down to, we thought it would be Denny Hamlin and everyone else. Hamlin gets shuffled out. Somehow, Eric Almirola finds himself in the lead on the final lap, blocking like a nutcase back and forth, racing the race of his life. Here comes Austin Dillon in the 3 with a big push from Bubba Wallace. And what happens? Austin Dillon gives Almirola a tap after Almirola does a very sharp block on him. And then next thing's next, he hits him again. Then not square this time, kind of more in the right rear quarter panel, sends him around Almirola on the wall. Dillon wins the 500, and then it's just chaos. Bubba Wallace says Hamlin has to take Adderall after they wreck going for second place. So it was a crazy race. So obviously David Land has the argument about this was not racing. But I can't say that because maybe it's not racing, but it's NASCAR racing. NASCAR has had a history for over 40 years, dating all the way back to their first ever nationally televised race in 1979, the Daytona 500, when Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison wrecked coming to the finish line, and then there was the fight. That's what really got NASCAR into a national footprint. And once everybody had come into NASCAR and started paying attention to it, that's what got people interested in the sport. Not just the tight racing, it was incidents like that. And all these people are like, oh, this has never happened before. Everybody forgets, 2 years ago in the Daytona 500, Matt Kenseth was leading that race. Denny Hamlin gets a big run. Denny Hamlin pretty much runs over Matt Kenseth in turn 3 before he ends up with the photo finish with Truex. Nobody talks about that. This same thing happened 2 years ago. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because we love Denny Hamlin, which I don't know. Nobody feels bad for Matt Kenseth because he's already won it a couple times before, or if it just gets detracted because of the whole photo finish. But this same thing happened 2 years ago, but it's just everybody forgets about it. So this is part of NASCAR's culture. And does this need to be changed? Well, it really depends. NASCAR has to look into their fan base. What do people want to see? Do they want to see big wrecks? Do they want to see really close finishes? Are they more focused just on the racing aspect and avoiding rubbings racing? But that is pretty much what NASCAR lives by. And it's not like this has just started this year, and it's not like it started because of stage racing. It's gone on since the 70s on and off. And definitely, of course, then there's the people who start saying that NASCAR is rigged and all that. I don't think so, but I will say that NASCAR did get what they want with Austin Dillon winning, even though I'm not going to say that it's what was set up, because it wasn't. But it wasn't racing. It wasn't real racing, but it was NASCAR racing. It was really evidence of NASCAR racing. And that's why this race, it was kind of testy, but I'm going to say I like the way that this one turned out for NASCAR. I think it's going to help them more than hurt them, because they are trying to appeal to a fan base. And this fan base that they are into is into something else that has a lot of drama, and that's WWE. What I'm saying is that the NASCAR fan base, I'm not saying it's all of it, but a large majority of the NASCAR fan base is Southern Republicans. And a lot of Southern Republicans are also big into WWE because of Vince McMahon, who is very against the NFL and liberalism and everything else that he's been doing, and now he's been starting the USFL. NASCAR tries to appeal to that fan base. So they have to weigh with their respective fan base. What do these people want to see? Do they want to see just boring racing, or do they want to see exciting racing? This was one of the most exciting NASCAR races I think I've ever seen. This paired with Saturday's Xfinity race, what an amazing 2 days for NASCAR. That Xfinity race. I was in a car ride from upstate New York down to where I live in central New Jersey, which was almost a 3-hour car ride. And overtime and everything, the final 2 laps of the race lasted from 10 minutes away from Marist College all the way up in upstate New York for 2 hours till I was 10 miles away from my house. Like, that race was crazy. It ended with the closest finish in NASCAR history. And then this race, Austin Dillon could not have lifted, because what would have happened if he lifted? He would have wrecked too. If he had lifted, he would have gotten run over from behind by the 43 of Wallace. And either Hamlin or Chris Buescher would have won the Daytona 500. So that is my spiel on that. So just to finish it out, it's not racing in David Land's perspective. It's not like regular racing, but NASCAR is not regular racing. They have to appeal to their fan base. What does their fan base want to see? Constant action. And they want to see the contact, because NASCAR has been known for many years as being a contact sport. Now, there is something that both David Land and NASCAR Fan 4888 brought up that I think that they need to take into consideration, and that is the speed on these plate tracks. I think they have to try to find a way to restrict it a little more, because now we're getting into, this would be the 3rd time that NASCAR has lost control of these cars because of the speed on the plate tracks. You go back to the 80s when they didn't, before the restrictor plates, when things were insane, cars going 210 without any draft, and then Bobby Allison has that horrific crash that thank goodness nobody was seriously hurt in. And I think that's what led to the first change, and that's why restrictor plates came. Then you had the crazy, and I don't know, younger fans might not remember this as much, but 2010, 2011, when I first got into NASCAR, it was the days of 2-car tandem and all that. And the days of the 2-car tandem, I mean, it was an interesting time. But once again, you had crazy speeds, crazy crashes from about 2009 till 2011. The number of flips in NASCAR, and I know that also includes the car tomorrow too, but that paired with the 2-car tandem at the plate tracks produced so many wrecks. Then things got under control, and we had some good plate racing for a few years. For the fans who liked the flips, we still had a couple flips. Kurt Busch's barrel roll crash at Talladega, we still had a couple. But it was more controlled. Now, you've got these speeds at these incredible rates of speeds. Then you've got to pair this with drivers who are extremely aggressive because this is a youth movement that NASCAR has coming in, and all of these drivers are young and just inexperienced and aren't experienced at the plate racing level. And if they have any experience, it's in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series where it isn't as wild. Cup Series, Speed Weeks was marked by, hello everyone who is joining, happy President's Day. Speed Weeks was marked by cars getting loose, especially in the Cup Series. Truck Series, Xfinity Series, not as much. Those wrecks were more contact-based. Cup Series was mainly, you get within inches of a car, and it's just going to lose control. Nobody could hang on to their cars. And I think it's because of these speeds. You know, Darrell Waltrip, these cars have never gone faster here. Well, that's a problem. This is something that NASCAR has to address. And it's not new this year. Last year was pretty rough too, because think about the tracks that carry high rates of speeds. Not just the plate tracks, but Indianapolis, Kansas, so many wrecks in those races. And I was looking at a statistic. You know, there were 6 races last year, 6, where half the field did not finish the race. Martinsville, the fall Martinsville, chaotic Denny Dirty Dog Hamlin and Chase Elliott race. Indianapolis, the fall Kansas race, because there was so many troubles, and then all of the plate races except for Spring Talladega, which had the biggest crash, but at least it only had one. I see the argument about last year's Daytona 500. Last year's Daytona 500, though, was a different type of racing because there was strategy that went in. It was all about fuel mileage. Fuel mileage was not an issue this year, and it's not because of a change in cars or anything. This year, it was because these cars were experienced with stage racing for a year. If you remember last year, there were just some ridiculous pit strategies that were being used. You had drivers, I remember Toyota, because nobody knew what to expect from stage racing. They hadn't done it yet. Toyota, 5 laps into the race, sent all 6 cars, all 4 Gibbs cars, and both Furniture Row cars to pit road. I mean, well, negative Alex, if you watch the replay, Austin pretty much ran into the back of Almirola and took him out. But once again, he acknowledged it. Almirola acknowledged it. Any driver in that spot, you've had the chance to win the Daytona 500. That is a career-altering moment. He had to choose. I mean, like, Austin Dillon, if he hadn't done that, he would have been in so much trouble because he would have gotten run over from behind by Bubba Wallace, creating a big accident. And like I said, it would have come down to Hamlin and Chris Buescher for the Daytona 500. Eric Almirola was blocking very sharply because you could tell he was nervous in that car. I know he's won plate races before. He's won them in the Truck Series. He's won them in the Xfinity Series. He's even won one in the Cup Series, but not at this level. He has not been in competition in the Daytona 500 really in his whole career for. If you think about it, Almirola's been around for a decade. I can't think of one Daytona 500 where he was even like battling for the lead at any point in the race, whether it was lap 1 or lap 200. There are the drivers who are calm, cool, and collected. And this is how I'm going to wrap this up on this Daytona subject. You've got your drivers who are calm, cool, and collected in situations like this, who can run well in front of the pack. Unfortunately, in this race, due to the rules package that NASCAR has right now, and the fact that these cars are just so fast and hard to handle, so many of those guys were taken out of the race before halfway. And it's not because of stage racing. Stage racing is good. But when you've got cars going 205 miles an hour that can barely stay straight, things like this are going to happen, and you're going to have underrated drivers up front who aren't experienced in situations like this, and neither Austin Dillon nor Eric Almirola were prepared to be up in the front for the race. So that's going to pretty much wrap up what I have to say on the finish of the Daytona 500. It was a great race. The stages were awesome. Bubba Wallace really impressed me in that 43 car. Something else that was pretty cool, you know, BK Racing, they were the third highest finishing Toyota out of the 8 in the race. Greg Alling beat 3 of the 4 JGR cars, 4 of the 5 strong Toyota cars. He had such an amazing day. I mean, what a day from Greg Alling, finishing 20th. Justin Marks finished 13th. If that wreck hadn't happened with 2 laps to go, Brennan Gaughan would have had a chance, possibly, but of course he crashed. And yes, Exploder JGR did crash, but, I mean, still, Greg Alling was able to avoid those wrecks. Danica Patrick's final race, her career comes to an end. She did break barriers, definitely the best woman to ever race in NASCAR, but not a great driver, but I think there are, if you watch the ARCA race, Natalie Decker, she is going to be much better than Danica Patrick ever was. Able to handily win the pole at Daytona, avoid several big wrecks, and still finish in the top 5. Danica Patrick was running at the very back of that pack when Chase Elliott spun in second place and still couldn't avoid that wreck for some reason. And I don't know if this is a spotter's fault or if this is her fault. Hi, 2020 NASCAR Stop Motion Series. But she's tried to drive on the outside. Chase Elliott slammed into the wall. He's going to be right there. I don't know if that's a spotter's problem or if that was her, but regardless, I mean, not a great finish to her career. Still a solid career, but I think there are going to be other women in this sport that end up surpassing her, and I think that's going to be coming very soon. So Daytona told us a lot. They told us that these Fords are going to be very strong this year, as I thought. RCR, the Camaro, I think Richard Childress Racing is going to be good. I think they're going to get both of their cars into the chase. Watch out for Bubba Wallace. Denny Hamlin is still strong. Jimmy Johnson sucks at Daytona. William Byron is decent. So that's pretty much, well, Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman ran well all day. He was able to somehow sneak his way through both of the first 2 big wrecks. That wreck at the end of stage 1, first of all, I thought that was going to be huge. That only took out 4 cars. Yes, Byron and Larson got some damage, but it only took out Johnson, Suarez, Eric Jones, and Ty Dillon. Stenhouse sliding across the track from second place. I don't care if he saved it or not. This just tells about the talent of these young drivers. Even in that situation, you know, as I said a few minutes ago, in the pressure situation on the final lap, that's when they struggle. But in a situation like that where it's not as much pressure, it's just for the stage, the fact that many of them, I know some of them got wrapped up in it, but many of them were able to slip through, and it was just very impressive. And Alex Bowman had a great day, got stuck a little further back in the pack, not a great pit strategy at the end, and he ended up getting wrapped up right in that big wreck, and he and Stenhouse took some ridiculous hits. So, one more thing I am going to say, because 2020 NASCAR Stop Motion Series highly opposes stage racing. I don't have a problem with stage racing. If you want to see, once this stream is done, you should go back and listen to the first few minutes as I hash about the last 2 laps of the Daytona 500 and why I think the blame should go towards NASCAR and the packages for controlling these cars rather than anything else, because the reason that there's been issues like this at the end of a race is because you've got all the inexperienced drivers getting taken out because of senseless racing. And that is not because of stage racing. Stage racing makes things more exciting. It is because you've got guys that are driving 205 miles an hour in 3 wide packs, and it was proved all through speed weeks that you couldn't even keep a car straight. And that is the reason that so many problems came. And the reason why Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola, this big issue happened. Yes, I did listen to David Land. The big issue with Dillon and Almirola is because they are inexperienced drivers. Almirola won a rain-shortened Daytona race like 4 years ago. Austin Dillon never runs up front in these plate races. Aside from the year he won the pole for the 500. Yeah, I can't think of a time where Dillon or Almirola at any other time were challenging for the lead in a plate race in any other time in their careers. Hi, team Hunting Everything Gaming. You were finally able to make it to a stream today. But I can't think of any other times that that's happened. And the reason why that happened is because all these guys got taken out. Yes, Austin Dillon did wreck Eric Almirola, but it was the final lap. What is he going to do? If he slows down, he was going to get run over from behind by Bubba Wallace, and that would have created a massive accident. He bumped Almirola once to get him ahead, but he bumped him in the right rear quarter panel. I don't think he meant to necessarily completely take him out. I think he meant to move him so he could get a bit of a push from Bubba to get to the middle. But one thing that 2020 NASCAR Stop Motion Series and Team Hunting Everything Gaming, since you just joined, and then I do have to move on to other topics, is nobody, not David Land, not NASCAR Fan 4888, nobody on Fox is talking about the fact that everyone's like, oh, something like this has never happened before. Maybe it gets detracted because it was the year of the photo finish. But 2 years ago, you've got Hamlin who pretty much takes out Kenseth in turn 3. And it's the same case as Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon had so much momentum on a push from Bubba Wallace, and he wanted to make his move then. And he made some contact and tried to move him out of the way and ended up wrecking him. Matt Kenseth 2 years ago got bumped and into the wall. It wasn't as dramatic of a wreck, and Kenseth still ended up hanging on for a solid finish. But Hamlin did the same thing to Kenseth that Austin Dillon did to Eric Almirola, and nobody talks about that, whether it's because, I don't know, pro Hamlin, which I don't think so. Maybe Kenseth's already won it a couple times. Nobody really cares. Is it because they wanted to see the underdog winner? Is it because the photo finish made everyone forget about that? I don't know, but that's the whole deal. This has happened so many times before. And that is pretty much going to wrap up what I'm talking about the Daytona 500. Atlanta should be good. I think JGR is going to come back strong. And something else I do want to mention. If you saw my NASCAR Heat 2 live stream, Austin Dillon ended up winning that race, and Eric Almirola ended up getting shuffled out of the lead draft with like 2 laps left. So I don't know if that is some sort of voodoo magic or what. Like, everybody was running in the front. It predicted that Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott would not finish the race. I mean, that is crazy. So I did an Atlanta race today, offline. So according to it, it predicted that Brad Keselowski is going to dominate the first half of the race. Ricky Stenhouse is going to wreck out of the race with Chris Buescher. Jimmy Johnson is going to win the race with a big third stage and hold off Martin Truex and Bubba Wallace. And Keselowski's going to have an issue. And Keselowski's going to have a really loose car, hit the wall late, and fall out of it. So if Sunday in the Fields of Honor Quick Trip 500, if Jimmy Johnson ends up winning the race, holding off Darrell Wallace and Truex, and Keselowski has an issue, and if Ricky Stenhouse and Chris Buescher crash, then I am just going to absolutely freak out. But now I do want to talk about something. We haven't done this in a month, and probably the biggest sporting event happened 2 weeks ago, the Super Bowl. And my goodness, as a Eagles fan, I'm so happy about this Super Bowl victory. And the fact that we started using trick plays against the Patriots, which is so risky, but we were able to come through. And I really think that this is really a turning point in the Patriots franchise. I think next year the Patriots are going to come back strong. The Eagles are going to take a step back. We still have a quarterback issue with Nick Foles, Carson Wentz, and it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. But I think the Patriots realize time is running out. Tom Brady, I know he won MVP. He's taking a step back this year. I think next year they are going to win the championship. I think it's going to be, and then I think Jacksonville is going to really start to move towards the front of the conference. I think you're going to see some new dynasties. I think the Titans are going to be good. I think Jacksonville's going to be good. I think Oakland, when they move to Las Vegas, is going to still have a chance. And I don't know. We'll see what the Patriots do once Brady is done. But I think next year is Brady's last year. A very early prediction. I think the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to win. I think they're going to beat New Orleans. I think New Orleans is going to get lucky. They've got a good roster. I think Drew Brees is going to have one more hurrah. The old quarterbacks, both in their 40s. Drew Brees turns 40 next year. Brady will be 41, and Patriots are going to win it. And then I think that's when Brady and Belichick call it a career. 6 Super Bowls that'll tie them with Pittsburgh and Dallas as the winningest franchise in NFL history, and that'll be it. But the Eagles, this defense was strong, and half our defense was sick with the flu. I mean, half of them. 3 of our defensive linemen were sick with the flu, and we're still able to play through and still able to get that critical fumble of Tom Brady late in the game. And it's great to say that the Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and I think we're going to be good for a while, but I think that we should get rid of Nick Foles. I think that there's a lot that could come for him. Nick Foles, now that he has a Super Bowl, and no, they did have the flu. I did hear that because Minnesota, so many people had the flu there because a couple weeks ago the flu was still so big and all the fans had it, and a bunch of the Eagles players had the flu, but, they got shot up with all kinds of drugs and stuff to play through the game probably. But back to Nick Foles. Nick Foles, there's a lot you can get from him. I don't know who would be the team that would get him. It has to be a good team that is one piece away. And Fisher, you might cringe when I say this, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Jaguars look to make a move, because Blake Bortles, I think this Jaguars team is going to be good, but I think Blake Bortles is not the option at quarterback. He doesn't seem like a franchise quarterback to me. If he went to the Jaguars, that team, you've got Leonard Fournette, best defense in the NFL. As much as I like the Eagles, Jaguars are the best defense in the NFL. Good receiving core, good running back. But I don't know. And the front office is not a big fan of Blake Bortles. If you remember at the beginning of the season, they were considering not even starting Blake Bortles. At the beginning of the year, they said that Chad Henne was going to be the starting quarterback. I don't know. Now, Kirk Cousins is an interesting option because Alex Smith is now going to be taking over for the Redskins. I don't think Eli Manning's going anywhere from the Giants. So you've got this deal with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins isn't going to go to Kansas City because they've got Pat Mahomes. I think Cousins is going to go to a struggling team. This is where I think Denver gets into the mix. This is what's going to happen. Kirk Cousins is going to become the starting quarterback for the Broncos. Foles is going to get traded to Jacksonville. And I think Blake Bortles is going to get dealt to the Cardinals. As shocking as it may seem. Bengals, I don't really know. I know A.J. McCarron's off the roster, so Dalton is the only quarterback. They might be the odd team out. They might have to draft a quarterback. There are so many quarterbacks that are going to be coming out of the draft. Ryan Tannehill is going to be back with the Dolphins. I wouldn't worry about that. Jay Cutler was just the 1-year deal while Tannehill was hurt. As long as Ryan Tannehill comes back healthy, I think they're going to keep Cutler in camp just in case. But once they can prove that Ryan Tannehill is back and his healthy self, that's when Cutler gets the boot, and I think Cutler will finally call it a career. But the other thing to think about, these quarterbacks that are going to be coming out of the draft, I mean, you got Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, the guy from Wyoming. And the Giants could possibly Josh Rosen too. You've got 4 quarterbacks who are all supposed to be these star quarterbacks. And you've got bad teams that are set with quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo, now the highest paid player in the NFL. Tennessee's not going to make a move. I mean, San Francisco's not going to make a move. Buccaneers, I don't think they're giving up on Jameis Winston. Houston is a team that has Deshaun Watson. They're not going to be doing anything. The Chargers, I still think they're going to stick with Phillip Rivers for the time being. They might be a team, though, that drafts one of these guys and keeps them until Rivers retires. Browns are still going to draft a quarterback. Rosen's going to go to the Giants. And I think he's going to assume the backup role for at least a year or two before Eli goes, because I still think Eli is going to come back for another year or two, because Giants front office has said that he's going to be the quarterback next year. Baker Mayfield, he would fit well with the Broncos. But now you are going to have this surplus of quarterbacks that are going to be coming in. And this is how this all ties back to the Eagles. Will there be a team that needs Nick Foles? I know he's a Super Bowl MVP, but if you have all these guys coming out, you've got Kirk Cousins, who's led the Redskins to the playoffs on multiple occasions, not even going to have a job right now. There are so many quarterbacks who are going to be out there. You've got veterans like Cutler and Eli Manning. Nick Foles, it's hard to even predict, picture saying this, but Nick Foles could end up staying, even as a Super Bowl MVP. He'll be the one that nobody wants. So that's just going to be interesting. Foles isn't going to New England because Tom Brady's still going to be there for the time being. He's not retiring until they win a Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be next year, unless it just gets too unbearable. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and we really can't make any more assumptions on this until draft day comes, because then we'll see who has picked up a quarterback, who could still be missing. Will the Broncos still need a quarterback? What will the Giants do? Is Eli actually staying? Is Ryan Tannehill healthy? And then we can start making some of these assumptions. Now, the last topic I want to get to today is the NBA. Now, it's been interesting with the Cleveland Cavaliers. My goodness, cutting that whole team apart, aside from an unhealthy Kevin Love, LeBron, J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson. Everybody else goes. So this leaves this weird situation here in Cleveland. They bring in these new guys. You've got Larry Nance, Jordan Clarkson, not really the best of players. Then you throw in out of nowhere, you've got Rodney Hood coming in, a veteran like George Hill. I'll talk about the Lakers in a minute because that connects to this Cavs trade. But Cleveland, how about this way this Cavaliers team has performed? I like this Cavaliers team now that they have gotten rid of some of these opposing forces. I don't think Wade should have been traded because I think Wade blends well with LeBron, and they still need another veteran presence, especially if Love isn't healthy for a long time. But smart decision to me getting rid of Isaiah Thomas. He did not fit with this Cleveland team. Now, I think they gave up a lot, though, when Isaiah Thomas, Channing Frye, who is a great bench player, a power forward who can shoot threes like Steph Curry, and a first-round pick for Larry Nance, who is a good player, I give him credit, and Jordan Clarkson, who doesn't bring much to the table. You trade a superstar and a first-round pick for that. Lakers made out great in that deal. Now, the only reason I could justify keeping Isaiah Thomas is because, let's be honest, LeBron's gone at the end of the season. He is not staying in Cleveland. And I'll talk about where I think LeBron's going in a minute. But LeBron is completely, he's done with Cleveland in June. So they need someone who they can build a cornerstone around. Originally, the thought was Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's gone. Kevin Love is getting old and is becoming more and more vulnerable and fragile, and he's not good enough to have a team built around him. And none of these guys that they got are star players. They are role players. They are blending in players. Larry Nance is probably the best one that they got, but this team could be in a big, big hole. The only thing that's lucky that they have this year is the Brooklyn Nets first-round pick. And the Brooklyn Nets right now would get the number 2 overall pick. So the Cavs are going to have a chance. That's building around a new team with Mila Doncic or Marvin Bagley III, which I don't think is too bad. And you still have Love for another year. You got these young guys. You still got Tristan Thompson. You've still got the veteran J.R. Smith under contract. It's just an interesting decision on their part. It's just I think they are so focused on winning this year, trying to win one more time with LeBron, that they were willing to give up Isaiah Thomas because he just didn't blend in with LeBron, and they don't want to put the last season with the King at risk. Now, the Lakers are such an interesting situation. Isaiah Thomas has been doing great with the Lakers. Aside from that one weird game where he got ejected when he got into a fight with Rajon Rondo. But the one thing I don't understand, half the time he doesn't even start. And Lonzo Ball is not even playing right now. Lonzo Ball's been hurt for a month. They start Kentavious Caldwell-Pope over the man who finished third in MVP voting last year. I don't know what Luke Walton is thinking, and LeVar Ball's off in Lithuania, so he can't scream and clarify. So this is an interesting team the Lakers are putting together. They have pieces now. You've got Isaiah Thomas, but the thing is, does Isaiah Thomas last? Do they re-sign him next year? Because, as much as Lakers fans may disagree, they want to build this team around Lonzo Ball. LeVar is like, oh, we got to get Lonzo, we got to get LiAngelo, we got to get LaMelo, all on the same team. And I don't think the Lakers want to become the Ball brothers show because Lonzo Ball, to me, has not added that much to the table. He's a good player, but his future, I think, is as a sixth man, like off the bench as a point guard. I don't think he's a starting point guard. He's just not. And when you've got Isaiah Thomas, when Lonzo's going to be healthy next week, it's going to be interesting to see how do they fit this around. They should just put Caldwell-Pope on the bench, but Isaiah Thomas should be in the starting lineup, and for whatever reason, they don't want to do that. They should, and I know LeVar, they won't do it, but they should get rid of Lonzo Ball. I know they can't, but you have a choice now you got to make. Do you keep Lonzo Ball or do you keep Isaiah Thomas? And frankly, Lonzo Ball is not going to be the person who attracts all of these free agents. Why is LeBron James going to go running to LA to go play with Lonzo Ball and Brook Lopez? He's just not going to. Paul George is the one that I think they're going to be able to get because Paul George last year, of course, wanted to come to the Lakers. Then Magic Johnson was doing some bad things during the season trying to recruit Paul George while he was still playing for Indiana. And next thing we knew, he was with the Thunder. He does not fit great with that Thunder team. I think he likes being the star of the show. And honestly, with the Thunder, he drops to third because you've got Russell Westbrook. Then you got Carmelo Anthony, who still wants to be a star with this team. So I think Paul George is going to come, but the NBA is fueled by having a big three now. Curry, Thompson, Durant. Love LeBron and Kyrie. Then back in the days, even back to the old days, a few years ago with LeBron and Wade and Chris Bosh. I mean, there's just certain decisions that have to be taken into consideration. And the Lakers, Lonzo Ball is not going to be one of those three. It's just that. Lonzo Ball is not a star. So unless they trade Isaiah Thomas, they're going to have this major discrepancy, and then you'll have LeVar Ball all angry. But at the same time, if you keep Lonzo, who's going to want to come there other than Paul George? Because then you've got your big one. I know Kyle Kuzma's a good player. He's not a star yet. Brook Lopez, not a star, never was a star, never will be a star. The Lakers have some decisions that they have to make. Overall, I think they're in a good spot right now, but they need to find a way that they can keep Isaiah Thomas and maybe turn Lonzo into a sixth man. So, Fisher, just to wrap this all up, and you say LeVar Ball, the Lakers' success for the next 10 years is going to come down to LeVar Ball and his acceptance of what Lonzo really is. Lonzo is not a great player. Lonzo chucks a lot of shots. He's not a great shooter. He is a great passer. Hey, joking with Tenno. But Lonzo Ball does not do anything. He doesn't add much to the table of a good team, and he is not a starting point guard. He gets fouls. He misses shots. Unless LeVar Ball accepts that Lonzo Ball is going to be a sixth man, he's going to freak out and still going to demand that Lonzo and LiAngelo and LaMelo, and who knows how good LiAngelo or LaMelo are going to be because they're not even playing college ball and they're trying to compete with the guys in Lithuania, which I'm not even going to get into that whole thing. But that's the problem that we're going to see here. And LiAngelo and LaMelo, if they end up there with Lonzo, I don't know. It's just this Lakers team just has so much work to do. And fact of the matter is, having the balls is not going to produce free agency signings. Now, the other thing I do want to talk about before we wrap up, and I might come back to the Daytona 500 because I see a few more people join, but I do want to talk about the NBA All-Star Game. The NBA All-Star Game was great this year, and I think now they have found a format that works for them. Having Team LeBron versus Team Steph, there was defense. These guys were playing with a passion. You had LeBron and Durant double-teaming Steph Curry to win the game. I mean, I've never seen defense before. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo with these ridiculous blocks. You had Westbrook block Antetokounmpo at one point in the game. I mean, I think this is a format that the NBA is going to have a lot of success with. I think it was a very positive weekend. They really got to showcase Donovan Mitchell, who I think is going to become one of the big faces of the NBA soon with all the success he's had in Utah. They had a very competitive three-point contest. Somehow Spencer Dinwiddie won the skills challenge, which is just shocking. But the NBA had a good weekend, and I think it's going to be a good last 2 months. My focus is turned towards the Eastern Conference to me. Is this Cavs team good enough? Can they make it to the finals? Everybody says Cleveland or Boston. What about Toronto? Toronto has a better record than both of them. The Raptors are the number 1 seed right now, and everybody's like, Celtics or Cavs, Celtics or Cavs. How about the Raptors? They got 2 All-Stars. You got DeRozan and Lowry, Jonas Valanciunas, who's an All-Star almost every other year, and Cleveland could be vulnerable because they've got nothing around LeBron. Who knows if Kevin Love's going to be back? Boston is not going to make any more improvements. Gordon Hayward, who knows if he's even going to be back from that brutal knee injury. Kyrie does not have a great team around him. You've got a young team that is just going to try their best to get into this. But the Western Conference will be interesting too because it's not just the Warriors anymore. Warriors aren't as good this year. Whatever the case may be, it's not age because they're all still in their prime. I just think that it's starting to die off, this Warriors dynasty. The Rockets are great. Joking with Tenno, you said the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves is good. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a good team. You've got Karl Anthony Towns, who really impressed in the All-Star game. That team I don't think is ready this year, but they need to make one more splash in free agency. And that's one of the places that I could see LeBron James going because that is a ready-made situation. You've got Jeff Teague, Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, Taj Gibson. And if you throw LeBron in that starting lineup, that team is a super team. Because you've already got Butler and Towns. And if you throw LeBron in, plus Jeff Teague and a veteran in Taj Gibson, that is an amazing starting lineup. But my prediction, if I had to predict who's going to the NBA Finals, I think the Rockets are going to upset the Warriors and make it. And I still think it's going to be the Toronto Raptors. Cavs and Warriors both going down. It's going to be Raptors-Rockets playing for the NBA Finals. Now, something I did say I did want to talk about is LeBron James. LeBron at the end of the season, not staying in Cleveland. So I have narrowed it down to 3 places that he'll possibly go. Minnesota is one of them. Next place I could see him, Toronto. Toronto now a good team. You've got DeRozan, you've got Lowry as your 1 and 2. Then if you throw in LeBron at the 3, Valanciunas at your 5, and OG Anunoby as your power forward, that is a great starting 5. And he could probably recruit at least one other free agent. If he could recruit DeMarcus Cousins to come there too. I know Cousins got hurt at the end of the season, got hurt a couple months ago, but Cousins will be better. And if you have Cousins, Valanciunas, LeBron, DeRozan, and Lowry as your starting 5, that is a pretty darn good team. And you know if LeBron goes to a team, that team is going to get enhanced with at least 3 good players because whether it's role players or starters, you're going to get more players on the roster. Then you've got your Minnesota Timberwolves, as I said, and then I could see him in Philadelphia. 76ers are great this year. Joel Embiid's going to be a superstar. Markel Fultz is going to be healthy next year. You've got Ben Simmons as well. Dario Saric, a veteran in J.J. Redick. And then if you threw in LeBron there too, LeBron James would be good. Mavs and the Kings. Okay, so what do you mean by that? In the LeBron perspective or in the overall as teams? LeBron is not going to go to either of those teams. So, okay, yeah. So the Mavs, you got Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk's a good player, but he's going to be gone soon. Mavericks really just need to work on rebuilding. You got a lot of promise in Dennis Smith Jr. Got a couple veterans. That team is an old team, though. Jameer Nelson, Devin Harris. So many old guys. But I think that's what this all comes down to. Dallas has a lot of work to do. They're just going to have to get lucky with some draft picks. As for Sacramento, ever since they lost DeMarcus Cousins, that team just looks like a mess. I know you've got a lot of young guys on that Kings team. They're a while away. That's all I'll say. It's Vince Carter and a bunch of 20-year-olds. That team is a long way away. So that's going to pretty much wrap up everything I've got to say about basketball. I am going to say one more thing about the NASCAR race. For anyone who has joined and did not see my rant at the beginning, I've been aware of David Land. I've been aware of NASCAR Fan 4888, both making arguments on NASCAR and the Daytona 500 finish. I say that the problem is not in stage racing. It's not that it wasn't racing, because it was. It was NASCAR racing. NASCAR racing is contact racing. But I will admit that there is things that have to be changed, and probably the biggest thing that they have to focus on is slowing down these cars, because these cars are ridiculously out of control. And it's not because of stage racing. It's because people are driving like crazy, and it's not their fault. It's the car's fault. These cars are going 200 miles an hour. You can't even keep them straight. And the reason why it came down to Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola, not experienced drivers in this situation, that's why Almirola was blocking like a nutcase, and Austin Dillon ended up ramming into the back of him, getting pushed by Bubba Wallace, all these inexperienced guys up there. It's because all of the stars, the guys you can trust in plate races, Keselowski and Johnson and Harvick and Chase Elliott and just everybody you could think of was out of the race. They had wrecked. Even Jamie McMurray was gone. He probably would have bumped someone and spun them out. But Jamie McMurray was gone. Everybody was out of the race. So, I mean, Ryan Blaney had a great day. Denny Hamlin was good, but everybody else was out of the picture. And Austin Dillon, one thing, it's the last lap. You want to win the race. I don't think he meant to wreck Almirola. I think he meant to just give him a bump out of the way and just bump him out of the groove a little, but he ended up getting a little more than that. But one last thing that is my big argument on this, for anyone who's just joined, I saw JMB joking with Tenno, a couple other people. My big argument, this has been going on for 40 years in NASCAR. 2 years ago, Daytona. Everybody forgets about it because of the photo finish and everything, and Matt Kenseth, oh, we won 2 races already. It's okay. He's fine. Denny Hamlin pretty much did the same thing to Matt Kenseth, except Matt Kenseth, who's more experienced, was able to save his car. And I mean, I know Almirola was pretty much turned right into the wall. But Hamlin had the same situation, got a big push from Kevin Harvick, like Austin Dillon got from Bubba. And I'll answer your question about DiBenedetto in a moment. But Austin Dillon and Bubba, same deal as Hamlin and Harvick. Dillon gets this big push. He has to go somewhere with that momentum. And he, final lap of the 500, a young driver, he realizes he can't really make that move. He would have been boxed in. He would have ended up wrecking. And if he had checked up when Almirola blocked him, then he would have wrecked Bubba. All 3 of them would have crashed, and it would have been between Hamlin and Chris Buescher for the Daytona 500. So it's the same thing that happened as 2 years ago. Same deal happened 40 years ago. And yeah, that crash with 2 to go kind of stinks because we were shaping up for maybe not a controversial finish side by side. Blaney, Kurt Busch, Hamlin. I mean, they were bound to wreck with the way they were racing. Two bad guys like DiBenedetto, Bowman, and somehow Joey Logano, who was put a lap down 3 different times during the race. Pit penalties, smoke sputtering out of the back of his car, and he still finished 4th. He beat Chris Buescher to the line for 4th place. Somehow Logano and Dirty Dog Hamlin still finished in the top 5. So that's going to pretty much wrap up Sports Speak. Remember to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll probably have another video out today about some stuff, maybe Shetty Basketball League. And a week from today, well, less than a week actually, is the regular season finale for the Progressive Cup Series. Also, remember, if you have NASCAR Heat 2 on Xbox Live, make sure to join the Virtual Racing Championship. So this is Sports Speak signing off. I'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your President's Day, everybody.